I don't know if you covered it on your show. Actually, you did a monologue on the topic, right? Nancy Mace, this Republican congresswoman. Now, in the past, she was very open and accepting of the LGBTQ community. In fact, people were pulling up tweets that were surprising me.
Yeah, she was going out of her way to not only say I support gay people, I support transgender people, I have friends and family members, like I'm totally open, tolerant, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, the political winds have shifted now, so is she.
So now, all of a sudden, you get one trans person elected to Congress, McBride from Delaware, and Nancy Mace goes on this virtue signaling tour about trying to change the rules, or, you know, is it? I don't know if it's a rule or a law that we're talking about here. It's a rule, right?
Yeah.
And Mike Johnson, by the way, did it, basically mandating that trans women can't go into the women's bathroom.
Right.
Right. And now Nancy Mace is on a Twitter storm over this. She tweeted like, I don't know if it's hundreds of times.
Hundreds. No, it's over 200 times in like 36 hours. She has tweeted about this one singular bathroom in the Capitol office complex.
She's
like,
recorded videos
insane.
About it.
Endless.
Yeah.
Endless. I mean, just and sending out fundraising messages, of course, which is going to become relevant to what we're about to show you.
Yeah, and Sarah McBride basically tried to take the high road, and she released a statement saying, look, I'm here to raise people's wages and get people health care, and so I'll follow the rules, whatever the rules happen to be. But this has now become like a central thing on the right. And of course, you got all the MAGA accounts who are like, you go, Nancy, you're a hero.
You're so brave.
You're so brave for this.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's pathetic, right? Like it fits right into what we've talked about a lot, which is the narrative on the right is blame immigrants for all your problems, blame trans people for all your problems, point the finger at them. And it's the classic divide and conquer, like, blame them and don't look at the billionaire running out the back door with all the money and the tax cuts and the subsidies and has all the power and bought the government and all that stuff.
It's also too perfect that, like, after an election where they claimed that Democrats are obsessed with trans people and culture war issues, like, bitch, you just tweeted 236 times, not exaggerating, literally that many times, about this bathroom.
Even the trans person is not obsessed with trans issues.
There's one transgender person gets elected, and you're having a total meltdown, not to mention the Trump campaign spent $30 million+ on trans-focused ads. So you tell me who's obsessed with this issue and, you know, hysterical over this issue and more focused on this than, you know, anything that might even remotely impact her constituents back home.
And by the way, we should be clear, too. Obviously, there's a spectrum when it comes to trans people. There's people who are like pre-op or post-op or pre-hormones, post-hormones, etc. If you look at Sarah McBride, she's a woman. Like, it's not close. It's not like maybe. No. She codes completely and utterly female. And so the point that came to my mind immediately when I heard her go on this virtue signal tour is, in the world that Nancy Mace is trying to create here, Buck Angel, who is like super masculine looking, like trans
muscular looking,
would have to go to the women's bathroom, and Sarah McBride would have to go into the men's bathroom. And that's really bizarre. Let's call it what it is. That's really bizarre. And beyond that, like, I don't know if I've always been a proponent of this. I think gender neutral bathrooms are totally fine. I'm actually a big proponent of, like, I say this all the time, like, individual bathrooms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I never really like just the men and women. Yeah. And also, point somebody else made is like, you know, the stalls, how they're open at the bottom and open at the top. Like, why the fuck are we doing that? That's such a that's such a remnant like of a more perverted time.
Yeah,
right?
it's like okay, it's 2024. We can get individual bathroom stalls.
I know.
And then there you go.
It's not that difficult.
Problem solved.
It's not that difficult.
Done. And everybody could be happy.
Instead, now we're having a national meltdown over this. And I mean, Trump himself said it. I think it was in 2015. He was asked about Caitlyn Jenner and which bathroom she should be able to go in.
Yeah.
And Trump was like, whichever one she wants. Like, he didn't care. He did not care in the slightest.
Yeah.
And now here we are, and they think the political winds have shifted. And so now she's going all in on this nonsense.
Yeah, that's right. And her former comms director is actually on a tear on Twitter. Like,
yeah, shitting on her relentlessly.
Nancy Mace apart, talking about how, hey, if you really want to protect women and girls, how about you take a look at Matt Gaetz, you know, and his, like, interest in young girls. How about Nancy Mace, that you stop obsessing over this because it's so clear that you're just trying to get Fox News hits and you don't care about the issue whatsoever. Like, I mean, she's just an incredibly shameless, self-promoting person. Apparently, there was a report that on January 6th, she was trying to convince her staff that she wanted to go out amidst the like rioters and get punched in the face
Oh
because
my
she thought that
God.
would be like good for
Attention whore.
attention and publicity. Like that's all she stands for ultimately. So in any case, Democrats are a mess trying to figure out what they want to do post-election. And immediately you had these two members of Congress who were like, yeah, basically let's screw trans people over, you know?
Seth Moulton was one.
And Tom Swazi, I think is his name.
Yeah,
they were the
okay.
two that came out. And that was their immediate first take, which is very convenient. Like, throwing trans people under the bus is like the easiest thing possible to do. Does not harm a single donor class member or billionaire or any of these like grifting consultants and Democratic establishment types who are actually responsible for the Democratic Party losing. So it's the easiest thing in the world to do. And so now Democrats are like a mess trying to figure out how they want to respond to this issue. And I would say that AOC, you know, came out and was very forceful and did a good job of taking on Nancy Mace directly. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
What Nancy Mace and what Speaker Johnson are doing are endangering all women and girls. Because if you ask them, what is your plan on how to enforce this? They won't come up with an answer. And what it inevitably results in are women and girls who are primed for assault because people are going to want to check their private parts in suspecting who is trans and who is cis and who's doing what. And so the idea that Nancy Mace wants little girls and women to drop trow in front of who? An investigator? Who would that be? In order, because she wants to suspect and point fingers at who she thinks is trans is disgusting. It is disgusting. And frankly, all it does is allow these Republicans to go around and bully any woman who isn't wearing a skirt because they think she might not look woman enough. People have a right to express themselves, to dress how they want, and to be who they are. And if a woman doesn't look woman enough to a Republican, they want to be able to inspect her genitals to use a bathroom. It's disgusting. And everybody, no matter how you feel on this issue, should reject it completely. What are they doing? They're doing this so that Nancy Mace can make a buck and send a text and fundraise off an email. They're not doing this to protect people. They're endangering women. They're endangering girls of all kinds. And everybody should reject it. It's gross. Thank you.
Yeah, and I thought what was impactful there that she did is, first of all, she just spelled out the implications of this policy. Like, okay.
Which, by the way, that didn't occur to me, and that's actually a brilliant point.
Yeah.
If there's some sort of a dispute, how do you solve it?
Right.
What do you
How
do?
else would you?
Hey, you got to prove to me that you're a man or that you're a woman. What you got down there, right?
No, and that's exactly right. So she lays out, okay, well, this is the logical consequence of the policy, the world you want to live in.
Genital
like,
inspections.
How does that seem to you? And then I think also really important is pointing out effectively, like, this is just a self-promotion strategy. And there was another Democrat who did a good job talking about some of these issues. This guy, I'm not familiar with him. He's a congressman from Massachusetts named Jim McGovern. I haven't heard of him before. But anyway, he was like, look, they use all of this to distract you. Woke this, woke that. And meanwhile, the plutocrats are running all the way to the bank because you're keeping people divided and focused on, you know, a bathroom rather than the issues that really impact them. And you pulled up that Bernie Sanders, like, famous speech from years ago where he's laying out exactly this strategy in great detail. And that's really the approach that Democrats need to take. Right? It requires them to have the class war narrative of, like, these are the people who are actually screwing you. And no, it's not trans people. And no, it's not immigrants. And the people who want to say that, all they're really doing is running cover for economic elites.
And it's also important to point out, Nancy Mace does not actually care about this in the slightest.
No.
The idea that, oh, she goes to the bathroom in Congress, as she's going in there, she's like terrified and scared that Sarah McBride is going to come in there and do something dirty to her. It's like, you know that's not a concern of yours. You know that is completely and utterly made up. You know you're just virtue signaling to shake down MAGA for more donations and give your name a bigger profile. You also know we live in the Trump era where controversy is a good thing and gets you more donations and gets you more support and gets you more online backing. So you're leaning into that. But there's no doubt in my mind that there's not a bone in Nancy Mace's body that actually believes what she's saying here. And by the way, the implication of what she's doing is to imply, if not outright say, that her trans colleague is a pervert and a criminal based on nothing other than Sarah McBride being trans.
That's right.
So that is Nancy Mace telling on herself there. Again, I don't think she believes any of this, but that is the implication. And that's the message she's sending to the world,
That's
which
right.
you have to call a spade a spade. That is deeply bigoted. That is deeply transphobic. Just pretend because this person's trans, they are, by definition, a pervert and a criminal, and they're going to do something disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is gross. And we happen to know some trans people. Guys, it is not easy to be trans. This idea that like they have a stranglehold on the country and they get to get away with whatever the hell they want to get away with is the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what it's like for these people feeling like they're in the wrong body and having to address that and spending their life struggling with that and needing to find a way through that and get comfortable in their own skin and go through the process? Do you have any idea how hard it probably is for a trans person if they're going to go get a job? Like, oh yeah, I'm sure you go to the top of the list if you're a trans person and you go in for an interview. I'm sure the person sitting there is like, yeah, can't wait to hire this person, right? Like, it's harder for them in so many ways. The suicide rate is so much higher. And these people love to shit on the most powerless in society and pretend like they're the ones speaking truth to power.
Yeah,
and it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. And never in a million years would Nancy Mace actually take on the real power centers in this country.
No, that's
never. She would never take on the military-industrial complex or big pharma or Wall Street or billionaire donors. She would never try to get money out of politics and actually represent the American people and give them higher wages and give them health care and things of that nature. So understand, you're being fucking played. Even if you're in MAGA and you enjoy this, you like the show, you are being played right now.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And this, honestly, it really starkly reminds me of what it was like probably all the way back in like the 1950s on issues of gay rights.
Yeah.
Where it was a consensus across the country, like, yeah, fuck these people. They don't deserve equal rights. That was the default perspective. It was the default perspective into like the 1990s. People thought of this as like, yeah, it's perverted, it's wrong.
Even into the 2000s, I mean, Obama wasn't running on marriage equality. I mean, that was very strongly, all those like Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, bumper sticker. Like that was a thing culturally until very, very recently. So yeah, it really is very reminiscent of that. And I would just say for Democrats who are like suddenly terrified of this issue because Trump ran those they them ads and they're, think, oh man, maybe this is like devastating for the Democratic Party, blah, blah, blah. At the same time that New York State moved more than any other state in the country towards Trump, 11.5 points shift towards Trump. At the very same time that happened, voters also voted on a constitutional amendment that, among other things, would guarantee equal rights for people based on gender identity. So giving equal rights explicitly to transgender people. The opponents of that amendment ran all sorts of scary ads about how, oh, this is going to enshrine a constitutional right that your kid can get trans surgery and you won't even know about it. This is going to enshrine a constitutional right that trans girls can play on your little girl's sports team, and it's going to be horrible. It's going to be terrifying. And guess what? Voters did not care. They voted for that amendment by a number of 62 to 38. Okay? So don't give me this, that this is like, the issue that's devastating the Democratic Party, blah, blah, blah. Don't be afraid of this issue. Don't capitulate on this issue and throw transgender people under the bus, because all you do when you take that tack is you validate their frame of the world. You validate their story of the world, that the real problem is immigrants and the real problem is transgender people and the quote unquote cultural elite, that those are the real issues. Do not give an inch of ground to these disgusting cretins, because not only obviously it's not electorally helpful, but it's also morally disgusting.
And by the way, when I'm taking a shit, I don't want anybody of any gender around me. Like, the idea that I'm supposed to specifically be upset if it's just a trans person listening to me shit, I don't want anybody listening to me shit. So if you're going to make any issue out of bathroom stuff, it should be what we talked about earlier, which is like give people full, privacy. Get rid of the open at the top, open at the bottom nonsense.
That's the consensus building
or
position.
Do individual bathrooms, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
problem solved.
Yeah, shitting with somebody right there is like, oh, this is disgusting. That's the issue. The issue has nothing to do with trans people. And by the way, final point on this, and then we'll get to the RFK thing. I looked it up, the U.S. support for gay marriage. In 1996, it was only 27% of the country supported gay marriage.
Wow.
And then, now, by 2023, it was up to 71%. I know that number's gone down a little bit among Republicans, but the rest of the country, it's going up. But that just goes to show you how something we take for granted now, like everybody, oh yeah, basic equality is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't that long ago that people did not feel that way.
Yeah.
And that is a warning for everybody these days that is going after trans people relentlessly. Be careful. There's going to come a time in the not too distant future where we look back at people like you as the same people who were like against interracial marriage being illegal.
That's right.
So easy.
Yep, that's right.